Hi, everyone. Welcome to MICCA's Meet Candidate series. I am Mike Sun. So a little bit about MICCA, Michigan Conservative Chinese Americans. MICCA is the only conservative leaning organization representing Chinese American community in Michigan. It was founded in 2018. It's being actively involved in the election process by supporting Republican candidates. Chinese Americans in Michigan is one of the largest immigrant communities, and MICCA's goal is to improve the voting rate or voting turnout among the Chinese community, Chinese voters. And also, MICCA is promoting the awareness that the Republican platform or GOP platform is highly consistent with the values with the vast majority of Chinese Americans who experienced the disaster of socialism before we came to this great country. MICCA in the past few years has organized volunteer activities from prison to delegate recruiting, phone banking, door knocking to poll challenge and watching. We also organized a couple of fundraising events to support Republican gubernatorial candidate Bill Schuette in 2018. With the 2022 midterm election approaching rapidly, MICCA initiated the Meet Candidates series. Our purpose is to introduce a Republican statewide candidates to the Chinese community to help voters make an informed decision at both a primary or state convention. By the way, we have over a dozen people who were at the state convention delegates in the past. So tonight we have the honor to meet with Ralph Rebandt. Ralph has served as a lead pastor for Oakland Hills Community Church in Farmington Hills since 1987. And he's the chairman of the OPC Church Extension Committee. Ralph is a chaplain for the Michigan Association of Chiefs of Police. You can read it faster than I can talk. A lot of police association. So without further ado, let's warmly welcome Ralph Rebandt.
Thank you. I'm glad to be with you all this evening. It's a real pleasure. And Gary, if you don't mind running that video, I know the audio, the sound may be a little different simply because it's coming through a computer and another audio source, but hopefully it'll work for us all.
Darkness has fallen on our great state. The aftermath of a turbulent administration led by Gretchen Whitmer and her elites in the handling of the pandemic. She locked up our economy, imprisoned our families, isolated our cities, and bankrupted our businesses while she received a full government paycheck, visited her family, and grew her own portfolio using campaign money to fly on a private jet to Florida during her own lockdown order. Citizens of Michigan grew confused, discouraged, and depressed. As a result, a broken economy and division in families, communities, and congregations are now testing the fabric of our carefully woven history, one that up until now has survived a revolution, a civil war, 2 world wars, and a host of other catastrophic events. My name is Ralph Rebandt. Father, grandfather, and husband. My 35 years of experience as a pastor has given me unique insights into repairing the family and healing our state. As the chaplain for the Michigan Chiefs of Police, I have been confronted with issues in our neighborhoods and participated in solutions that have benefited the citizens of Michigan. I'm honored that the Southeastern Michigan Chiefs of Police have endorsed me for governor. And as the 50th governor of the state of Michigan, I will fight for religious freedom, freedom of speech, for medical freedom, for election integrity, for the Second Amendment, and yes, I will fight for the unborn life. Our history shows that when America gets God right, integrity, honesty, liberty, and freedom follow. And that is why America is exceptional. There are those who want to destroy the rights and liberties granted to us by our Creator and confirmed in our Constitution. We cannot let that happen. I will not let that happen. As your next governor, I will stand in the gap for you. Together, let's bring the light of truth to dispel the darkness. Join me, and let's make Michigan a lighthouse to the nation.
Mike and Gary, am I live?
Yes, you are. Thanks for the video. This is a good introduction. Yes, go ahead.
All right. Well, again, thank you everyone for
today talking about Proverbs 9:10.
That's another video going there. Thanks, Gary. So anyway, I'm just very thankful to be a part of this discussion this evening. I am so thankful that you as a group, the conservative Chinese, are engaged and energized, not only in the previous elections, but this one coming up. This is really a huge election that we're coming up to. And I'm convinced, as I've been saying around the state, if we don't get God right in this election, nothing's going to matter. Yet we have seen not only America's constitutional principles built on Judeo-Christian principles erode, but we've seen lies, we've seen deception, we have seen lack of integrity, even from our own governor, as you just saw, where she would issue decrees or executive orders and then lock us down and not follow her own executive orders. And so I'm looking to promote freedom, integrity, truth, transparency, and accountability in an administration because it's really lacking. One of the reasons why I'm running is because I see that political lifetime politicians really aren't helping us as individuals. And so I am convinced that the way our country was founded, when people would be elected by their constituency to go represent them, whether it would be in a state capital or the United States Capitol, that they would serve their term, then they would go home and go back to doing their job again. So that's what we really need to get back into, term limits and not having career politicians, because career politicians, if you just simply track what's been going on, really creates a field for distrust. It creates a place where people can earn billions of dollars at the expense of the public. And so I'm all about bringing truth and transparency back to Michigan. I would like to share with you folks something that I shared with the Michigan Chiefs of Police a month or so ago. You may remember the Oxford shooting back in November. And as a pastor, as a police chaplain, I visited I went to all of the visitations for those young people who lost their lives because of that shooter. And during that visitation, I wanted the parents to know that their child did not die in vain, that God will not allow evil to triumph in this world. And especially from your backgrounds, knowing how bad socialism is and how bad communist regimes are and the oppression that they bring to people, I wanted them, the parents and the families, to know that that was not going to happen in Michigan. And so I presented to the chiefs of police a contrast. I don't know how long all of you have been in America or even Michigan, but there was a time, in fact, I even presented to a group last night in the Thumb in Michigan. There was a time when people in America took their guns to school, put them in their lockers, and then went hunting after school with their teachers for deer, even in Farmington Hills, which is my hometown. And so I asked the chiefs, I said, let's contrast that with what just happened in Oxford. And I asked them, I said, what's changed? Guns haven't changed. I have a 1955 Browning semi-automatic shotgun. There are pistols out there that have been around from World War I and earlier that are semi-automatic. What has changed? And as I talked to them, I shared with them that over the last 60 years, we've taken God out of the classroom, we've taken God out of culture, and we've taken God out of the courtroom. And so the reason why we are where we are today is because if you look back over the last 60 years, as you see a decline in the influence of our society trusting in God and following God, there's also this huge decrease that follows with the decrease in morality, increase in murders, increase in people dying by suicide. And so I could go on about this, but my point is simply this: when we get God right, as I mentioned in the video, culture follows. And so that's what I'm running on. And when you think about it, in America over the last 60 years, we have spent over $22 trillion on social programs, and nothing has changed. As I just mentioned, we have more suicides, we have more murders, we have more people in jail, in prisons, we have more people on drug addiction, more families that are falling apart. And so what we have to do is we have to rethink everything that we've looked at over the past 60 years. And our founders here in America said that America was built on religion and morality. And without those, this country will not last. And so as that has declined, as a pastor running for governor, I'm here to emphasize what our country was founded on, that has given all of us the freedoms to enjoy this great land that I was born in, and many of you were born in as well, or many of you immigrated to America to enjoy the freedoms that we have. So that's my little spiel this evening as we start. And as I mentioned to Gary and Mike, I would love to field questions from you. I know it's more interesting as we interact together and you get more of a feel for where my heart is and how I would help fix Michigan. One other piece of information I have, I've been married to my wife for 45 years. We were high school sweethearts. We met in 7th grade. We have 17 grandchildren, 4 children and 17 grandchildren. And we are enjoying them right now at this stage in our life. So I wanted to share that. I also wanted to let you know, as I said in the video, that the chiefs of police in Southeastern Michigan have endorsed me as their candidate for governor. Dr. Randy Baker, I don't know if you know that name, but Dr. Randy Baker is the doctor who sued Governor Whitmer during the lockdowns. She said that you could only do emergency COVID and abortions during her lockdown. Well, Dr. Baker, who's a friend of mine in Grand Rapids, had patients that needed dialysis. There were patients who needed chemo treatments. They couldn't get that. And so their health was declining during this lockdown order. And his statement is, as a doctor, I took an oath to protect people's lives, and now it's a crime if I try to protect them. So he sued Governor Whitmer, and on October 2nd, 2020, the Supreme Court here in Michigan voted 7-0, 7-0, that Whitmer's executive orders were illegal and unconstitutional. Randy's on my team. And so he has actually, I've asked him to be my health director. And so I have 3 other people who've already said they will leave their private practice when I make governor to serve on my team to make Michigan a better place for you, your children and grandchildren, and have the freedoms that we've all enjoyed. So I think I'll end with that and certainly open up to any questions that any of you may have.
Very good. Thank you, Ralph. So a little bit of housekeeping. We're gonna unmute everyone, or you can, I think it will give the permission to unmute everyone. Speak up and ask your question. You wanna hit at the bottom of the screen, there's a reactions, this emoji of a smiley face. Oh, sorry. No, I'm trying to look for the raise hand. I think that's where you can raise hand. Yeah, so if you click on the reactions emoji, then there's a raise a hand logo. Click on that one, then I know, yeah, Ray Hua's quick. And
Okay,
I'll have a question to ask, and I'll go with the follow the order. All right, so the first question comes from Ray Hua. Go ahead, Ray Hua. You can unmute yourself. There you go.
Okay, I'm around. Okay. Hi, Pastor Rebandt. Thank you for stand up and running for the governor, we really need to put biblical values back to the society. So, and you just mentioned about, you just talked about the school, right? What happened in Oxford, why the school, have the shooting, right? And actually, I think in the last couple of years, I saw enough, emojis or memes, I should say memes, with young people, with guns, and basically the idea is guns do not kill people. It's the people who carry guns, right? So basically, it's because of the morality decline in our society that caused the Oxford shooting. And all the root is because we take God out of our schools. So I have one question.
Okay.
If you will be the governor, are you going to put the Bible as a elective course?
The Bible as a course in school?
Yeah, like an elective.
Yes, we should have that. I mean, our country was founded on that, and we've had that for decades. We've had that until the 60s. And I would think that people could see the decline in culture, the decline in morality, the decline in families, and the increase in crime, and make that connection. And, someone asked me, and I love your question, because someone asked me the other day, how are you going to make this happen? How are you going to bring truth or the scriptures back into the classroom? Well, when I was growing up in the 60s, it was there. We had, in my elementary class, we sang Christmas carols. We sang things that were songs and patriotic things. We stood for the Pledge of Allegiance. So to answer your question, yes, I would. And I have a plan to revise the public school education system through, if you look at my website, it's called Operation Roundtable. And that will be a means by which the people that are affected the most should have the greatest say in the decision. So I'm against big government telling school districts and people what to do. I'm more interested in having the parents involved in the education of their children. And I'm convinced that people are seeing exactly what you just stated, and what I'm seeing as well, that the decline in American culture, the decline in the values, is because we've lost that religious foundation that our founders so clearly stated that without that, we won't exist as a nation. So the answer to your question is yes.
Yeah, thank you. I want to further, with this education question, right? This is just like one area we talk about. But right now, I think the most crucial to our children is the CRT and the pornography in the school. And this one has a very dramatic effect on our children, how they view race, how they view different people, how they view themselves, especially in our community, right? And we are a minority, and somehow we are rated as privileged, even though that our children work really hard, okay? So we are being called pseudo-white. You are white, we are pseudo-white. So, and so to us, this is very urgent, okay? We're running out of our, machines that are killing this society. This is very urgent. So how are you going to combat the CRT and, the pornography? All these are ruining our children's mind.
Right. That's really another good follow-up question. And the way I would do that is the way that Youngton in Georgia just did, and the way the governor in Florida did as well. If I have to do that by executive order, I will. And because it is so urgent, that's exactly what I would do. I would ban that from our schools and the teaching, because you're right, it affects all of us. And the problem with that, I believe I'm talking to a lovely group of people who understand history, because when you divide the people into groups and then you get them to fight against each other, that's when communism and Marxism and socialism takes over. And so I would get rid of all of that at the outset, and I would be having all kinds of opportunities to institute good things that that God has instituted. So, for example, as a pastor, I filter everything through the Word of God, because I know that the Word of God is true. So when someone tells me that, you know, that there's oppressors and oppressees, I understand that. But the point is this, that we're not a bunch of different groups out there that war against each other. We're part of the human family. We're part of the human race. And God made all of us from Adam and Eve. And because of that, one of my friends spoke at a fundraiser I had on Monday night, and he said, there aren't a bunch of different races. We all came from Adam and Eve. We are just different colors of dust. And I thought that's a very colorful and creative way to state exactly who we are. And so the whole point of the critical race theory is to divide us. And I'm not going to allow that to happen. I've also told people, even on my first day, when I announced back in May, I told people that I will remove sex education from the public school system. It's not the school's responsibility to teach my children about reproduction and teach my children about sex ed. That's where all of this distortion has come in. When you get liberals, you get people who are pushing an agenda that really goes against humanity. It goes against who we are as people. You know, I grew up on a farm, and I could tell a bull from a cow. You know, it wasn't hard to figure out, you know, a pheasant, a male pheasant versus a female pheasant. And when we're looking at human beings, it's not any different. Our founders talked about the God of nature and the laws of nature. And our founders understood that those things always coincided with each other. And when we threw the God of nature out, now they're throwing out natural science, which means they're telling us that a little boy can become a little girl, or a man can become a woman. And, you know, I'm sorry, if we look at the science that God has created, people can change their external appearance, but the reality is their DNA, their chromosomes are still either XY or XX, and they're still male or female. It doesn't matter what they've done. They cannot change that genetic imprint that God has given to them. And I appreciate your question, because I would take immediate action on day one to change those things.
Thank you. I think I will enjoy a sermon too.
Oh.
Okay, thank you, Rui Hua. Anyone else, feel free to raise your hand, or you want to type your question in the chat box. That'll be fine too. So we're bridging the gap, waiting for the next question. The braver ones who raised the question, raised the hand for the next one. Rafa, I just want to follow up on the education. So we talk about the, you know, bring Bible back to the classroom as the elective. We talk about prohibit the CRT, dividing CRT, and also the pornography in the school. Further on that, in terms of the STEM education, what do you think you will do as a governor to help with the K-12 education system, specifically for the inner cities? And that's just a problem statewide. You know, Michigan's deteriorating, especially with the past 2 years of pandemic, and Flint wanted to even go further, do online education permanently, which is obviously the wrong thing for them to make that decision. STEM education is important, along with many other areas. As a governor, how and what you're going to do to further enhance Michigan's STEM education in K-12?
Sure. Well, one of the things that I've mentioned is that we need to have educational reform. That's on my website. It's been on there since the end of April. And what I mean by that is, as I have gone around and as I've heard and been involved with, even with Governor Engler's revision that was asked earlier on sex, drugs, and AIDS back in early 1990s, I saw things that were offensive back then. And as you've identified, Mike, that and these things are pornography that are out there. As to what we would do, we want to create an environment where we have people who want the best for our children, not indoctrination, but rather education. We want to share with our kids how to think. We don't want to shove truths. We don't want to shove indoctrination down their throats, but rather we want them to be able to think logically, critically. Why do we arrive at the questions that are being asked, the issues that we're facing? That's the kind of education I had when I was growing up. When I got to college, it was the same thing. When I was in graduate school, it was equally the same thing. We were taught how to think. And when you're taught how to think and how you look for consistencies, and that's why I think everybody in Michigan's appalled with the fact that Governor Whitmer would give her executive order and then violate it herself. People realize that there's something wrong with that. And the reason why it's not a Western thinking, we understand that all around the world, that if people don't do what they say, you know, they're just hypocrites. They're not even looking at life properly, especially when they try to push their agenda down our throats. And so I have, as I mentioned, Operation Roundtable, and I also have been talking to educators all around the state. I talked with a man who was a principal just retired over on the East Side. And this man has a PhD, he's brilliant, he's got great ideas. And I would be bringing those ideas that we've discussed into the reforming the educational system. I already have a team as well. There are, you know, I talked about this Operation Roundtable. I would literally have a roundtable in my office, and we would sit and discuss the things that matter to Michigan citizens. And the reason why I'm so big on this roundtable is because, you know, when people get elected from our, you know, we elect someone to either go to Lansing or Washington, D.C. Within a year or so, they're not even voting for us anymore. And that's offensive to me, because I elected them to have them represent me. And when they get bought off by a special interest group or you know, some sort of group that wants to run their agenda, that's offensive to me when they follow that, because they're not to be bought off, bribed with whatever kind of favors, but rather it's supposed to represent the people. And so I have assembled a round table of people that really are extremely knowledgeable on education to answer that specifically, that I would get rid of critical race theory, and I wouldn't just leave it vague and empty, but we'd be replacing it with real American history. We'd be going back to reading, writing, arithmetic, because those are the things that help kids advance beyond where they need to be and use the God-given talents that they have.
Very good. Thank you. All right. So
okay, Mike. Mike, there's a question from Xiaohui, but she's
Sure.
in a meeting right now, so she cannot type it up or ask herself. So I probably ask her on her behalf, right? So Ralph, we talk about the school. That's great. You got a lot of great ideas. I really appreciate it. That's very important for us. But also for Michigan, another issue is our economy. Our kids are leaving our state. You know, when they graduate from Michigan, graduate from other schools, they're not staying here. There's a lot. I mean, you can see over years, opportunities just continue to dwindle.
Yes.
And we see just from the southern border, right, Ohio, they got the big deal with Intel with $20 billion investment for a fab. And then Ford, you know, set up a factory. It's a Michigan company, but they set up a factory in the South. And Michigan never even had opportunity, or our governor just so ignorant and claim that she never even knew this coming. So we just don't have a great, you know, policies or whatever different. I think it's a holistic issue here, and just not attractive to the business. So as a governor, what are you going to do to improve that?
That's a loaded question. And one of the things that I have in my arsenal is the fact that I'm on the board of governors for the Council for National Policy. And the Council for National Policy is a group that's located in Washington, D.C., where people from all over America come together 3 times a year. And we discuss issues that are economically related, that are governmentally related, that are educationally related. And because it's people from all over America, states are represented, governments are represented, and there are so many things that are resources for me as a governor. But in particular, let me answer that question because it is really, really significant. In order to be a successful governor, you have to know what's going on in your state and you have to be involved with people. And I'm convinced that that's one of the advantages that I've had as a pastor. I never sat in my office and just prepared sermons all week long. I was among not only our congregation, but as a police chaplain, I was out in the community. And as a governor, that's what my heart is. My heart is being involved in businesses. I own small businesses going through college and seminary. I was self-employed. I know what it's like to go without food. I know what it's like to worry about where your next meal is coming from. And because of those things that have been in my background, they will influence how I will address issues. And so what I'm sharing with you is exactly what you said, Gary. Our governor didn't even know that Ford was moving a plant or building a plant in Kentucky or Tennessee. She had no clue. And to me, it's lunacy. How can you not know that the biggest, some of the biggest industries in your state are it's almost like when President Trump was running for office and he said, we're going to bring jobs back to America. And at that time, Barack Obama said, what's he going to do? Wave a magic wand and bring businesses, back to, and he did. I mean, Trump's policies were profound. And I am hearing, Gary, that the same question. We're losing our young people. They're going to Chicago. They're going to Cincinnati. They're moving from the state. They get educated in some of the best institutions that we have, and then they take those skills out of the state. So one of the ways that I have a plan to keep that is while our students are in the university setting, whether it's engineering, whether it's teaching, to partner those people with businesses, with schools, to help build those relationships so that they have a heart for their fellow Michigan citizens. And let me back up to the education on educational reform. Here's what I would like to see happen, because the pandemic has really shown us how broken our school system is. And what I would like to do is have teachers who are within a 4-year window of retirement, if they're willing to say, I will take my teaching skills and go to a low-income zip code, Detroit, Saginaw, wherever it is, where they have needs. Say, for example, I'm a social studies teacher and I've been successful at that for 30 years and I'm going to retire, in 4 years from now. They can cut their retirement window in half, still get their retirement income. And then if they go into Detroit to help strengthen that school that's struggling, they can retire in half the amount of time and still get paid because there's a vacancy already in that school and they will help fill that vacancy. They can leave their educational career with a sense of satisfaction, knowing that not only did I have this outstanding career in my district, but I left knowing that I've influenced those who really needed help as well. So those are the kind of creative things. It's on my website as well under educational reform. But to keep people here, we have to start those relationships and build those relationships while, strike while the iron's hot. So while someone's, say, engineering or computers or whatever, take them, connect them with Ford, GM, Chrysler, small businesses, so that relationship will be built and they can, as it were, transition from education right into vocation.
Good
Thank
idea.
you, Ralph.
Okay, the next question comes from David J. David, go ahead, unmute yourself.
Yes, good afternoon. How are you? This is David. I have a question regarding that the representation of Asian population in the state. I know the education system need to be reformed. However, Asian will push their child working extremely hard, regardless of condition. However, the representation in term of population, number of the representative in Republican in this state is where I don't see many of Asian faces in the Republican delegates. I do see several Asian faces in Democrats in Detroit and traffic. I think I pronounced the name wrong. And if you are the governor, how would you approach that? Let's say this problem or this kind of situation that how, I'm not trying to say you have to quote how many of your governor or your department members has to be Asian.
Sure.
However, how would you to bring more Asian into your government?
Okay.
And to have a more voices being heard among this group? And I just read that we have about close to 3.4% statewide are Asian, and around Detroit is the second most popular city in the state. So this is my question. Thank you.
Yes, very good. Thank you, David. You know, I had mentioned earlier Operation Roundtable, and I didn't want to give the impression that, as I was talking about education, that I've got all the seats filled at that table. That's not the case at all. I would be taking people at the roundtable from every segment of society, those who are being affected by the decisions, having them sit at that roundtable, whether it's on education, whether it's business, whether it's the budget. I would be looking, David, for the brightest, the smartest, the people to represent Asian Americans, and even having you there. I mean, that would be awesome. I'm not sure what your gifts are or where you work and what your strengths are, but I'm looking for people, the average people like ourselves. And again, that's what I said. We're under the tyranny of the expert, so-called expert, whether it's the pandemic or whether it's education, and the people who the decisions affect the most aren't having a say in what's going on. And so that's the reason for the roundtable. As for a great representation of Michiganders in my cabinet, of course, do you folks know, maybe Mike or anybody can answer this. Do you folks know who Gene Ho is? Okay, Gene Ho he's an Asian American. His family lives in Michigan, and he was in Michigan at my fundraiser on Monday this week. He was President Trump's photographer in 2016 for the campaign, and he's a good friend of mine. In fact, he endorsed me, and I was just talking to him today, and he said, "I'm going to do a 1 or 2 minute video endorsement you can put on your website, Ralph, so that people know that as an Asian man, I really respect you and I want to see you in office." And so he's from South Carolina. He ran for the mayor of Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. You can look him up. He's a good guy. But anyway, yes, David, to answer your question, I certainly would be looking to have a good variety and wide spectrum of people, not only in my cabinet, but at those roundtables that will be meeting in my office.
Okay, thank you. We have a question in the chat box from, I don't have the name here. Do you, it denoted as an M. Do you want to ask yourself, or if you do, you can unmute yourself. If not, I'm going to ask for you on your behalf. So still on the education topic, Ralph, teachers are the most important factor. And this person's question is, how will you attract conservative teachers to the public school system?
Wow, that's a good question. Well, as we bring people into those seats that have been removed. Okay, so I mentioned a few moments ago about taking somebody from a given school district who's within, say, 4 years of retirement closing out their career in a creative way by leaving with such a sense of satisfaction, knowing that they have helped a lower income zip code school improve and increase. That opens up another classroom, another teaching position. And so what I would like to do is I would like to make sure that the vetting process is such that we are clearly looking at people who are not going to indoctrinate our children, but rather educate our children. In fact, Farmington, my own school system, used to be known as a great educational school system. They recently just in December passed what was called the 21-day challenge, and it was an attempt to have white people and what was the phrase that is used of Asians? They're not white, they're shadow white?
Pseudo white.
Pseudo white, is that what, okay, so.
I don't know. Did I pick that right from Rui Hua? She used some kind of a
Yeah, so
phrase.
So anyway, yeah, I'm concerned that we make sure that that vetting process is done well, and across the board, as we step up the requirements, as we increase, I will say this, as we even increase pay for teachers, that we're going to get quality teachers, and that's that we have to vet them. We can't just take anybody along, the path, but we have to make sure that they are indeed those who have the same constitutional values, the same moral values, the same concerns that we have. So if we lead the culture with, as I am, that's my platform, bringing God back into culture, that will encourage a lot of people who have been on the sidelines, who have been silenced, to come out and apply for those jobs. Because I know there are people right now who, it doesn't matter what industry they're in, whether it's military, whether it's education, whether it's medicine, they are afraid to speak up. They're afraid to share that they have faith in God. They're afraid of all these things. And some of you may remember when President Trump was running for president, he said, I'm going to say Merry Christmas, because that's what we're founded on. And I'm not ashamed to bring God back into culture. And I am convinced that when we do that, there will be good teachers stepping into those positions.
Okay. Thank you. Any more questions from audience? Okay, I'm gonna ask a question while we're waiting for others to raise your hand. So no candidate can skip the question about road in Michigan. This is so bad. So Whitmer obviously failed her campaign promise. Years went by, Michigan road is still as bad as before. I checked, Michigan still ranked top 10 worst road in the nation. Top 10 in the nation, measured by worst roads. If you are elected to governor, how and what will you do differently to really address this issue?
Well, that's a great question. I would not, let me just say this at the beginning, I am not interested in raising our taxes to make this happen. I am not interested in a gas tax. In fact, I have signed a governor's pledge through the Citizens for Conservative Values. I've signed a governor's pledge that said I will not raise taxes. And so it's just the opposite. I want to cut taxes. So the question is, okay, so if you're going to cut taxes and you're not going to raise taxes, how do you fix the roads? Well, here's the plan. The problem, first of all, is that we have in Michigan an 80,000 pound limit on our trucks. Trucks can run around with 79,999 pounds on their trucks. In Ohio, in Canada, in Indiana, in our bordering states, the maximum is 40,000. So we are allowing extra heavy trucks to truck around Michigan, and that's what is tearing up our roads. And so one of the things I would push and encourage and work with on legislature is to lower that that limit, so we don't keep tearing up our roads as they've been for the last 2 years. There's a side benefit for that. Someone says, well, what does that do? Well, it makes more jobs for people to drive. It gives more truckers opportunity to make more trips, but the roads aren't going to be getting torn up as much. There's another way that we can raise, several ways that we can raise revenue for this. One of those is whenever there's a ticket that's written for those who are overweight, I'm pretty sure it's 85% of that goes to the general budget, and the 15% goes to libraries in the municipality where that ticket is written. So if Farmington Hills writes a ticket for someone who's overweight and it's a $10,000 ticket, $1,500 of that goes to libraries. Our library is well stocked. I'm not against libraries, but I think that's an avenue that we can start to get money that's already being addressed and received because of the people exceeding weight limits and things like that. So I wouldn't completely cut the library budget from that, because there are other areas that we can get money from to fix the roads. But we want to make sure that that money goes toward repairing the roads. So how do we fix the roads so that they can be fixed long-term? One of the things, there are some test cases that I've noticed even in Farmington Hills, and I've had them pointed out to me. There are areas on Orchard Lake Road that were fixed 3 years ago that are crumbling today. And there are other areas in Farmington Hills that were fixed 10 years ago that are still good. And the difference is whether you do flat out pure concrete or you do a base that allows you to have some flexibility and movement with the freezing, the heaving and the hoeing and the weight and all this. If you, the one that was created with some movement, it's not crumbling and it's not into pieces. The one that was straight out concrete that you say, well, boy, concrete is going to last forever. It doesn't last as long as the other spot. And so we would be looking to have those kind of places wherever we would repair roads repaired so that they would be there for the long haul. And, I've told people, if we can send somebody to the moon, I find it unthinkable that we couldn't find some way to create mesh or something within that concrete, some sort of combination of people that are in that field. As I said, those people who are in that field making some sort of opportunity that we're not having roads that are deteriorating every 2 to 3 years.
Wow, you read my mind, because I haven't heard a lot of talking about construction quality, accountability, and really get into the durability of the roads instead of just talking about money. If you don't spend the money smart way and let go as the accountability of the construction quality, durability, even some research and science behind it, you will never resolve the road.
And one of the, I'm sorry, Mike.
Oh, another thing what I noticed is the practice of quick repair or patch.
That's useless.
That practice in Michigan is horrible. I don't have a better word to describe how wasteful that practice is. It's unbelievable. Nobody talk about it. There's definitely Whitmer hasn't even, I don't know if she even recognize that issue. Definitely no action to address that issue.
Right, and that's why I keep bringing it back to this roundtable idea. And I really am convinced that this is going to be successful, because when you have a group of politicians sitting in Lansing deciding that, okay, we're going to fix the roads, here it's allocated, but you never ask, how are we going to fix them? If you have people at the round table who are in the industry, people who are addressing these issues every day, you then have an opportunity not simply to fix the road, but you have an opportunity to have longevity to the fix. And when we talk about money, I wanted to add this as well, Mike. When we talk about money to fix the roads, my goal is to shrink government. And when we shrink government by attrition, and I'll just share with your group here, one of the things that I have is an incentive for at least 1,000 people in Michigan's government to retire and to jump into a different fund. And if they retire at $60,000 a year, 1,000 people at $6 million, and I know it doesn't sound like a lot, but the more we can shrink government and the more we can shrink each of those 20 areas that I get to appoint people to serve in my cabinet by 10 or 15%, the more we shrink that, we not only save people money, the state becomes attractive because the taxes aren't as high. And we also have this money that has been rolling in. We can use that money to fix those roads. And if you look at Whitmer's budget over the last couple of years, she ran on fix the darn roads. And and what happened is she did not increase, she didn't allocate more money toward fixing the roads. She actually decreased it. So I don't know how in her mind you can say, I'm going to fix the roads, but I'm not going to give you money to do it. I can't even imagine how somebody in their right mind could even say that, think that, and use that as a campaign slogan.
Well, that means only one thing. She lied.
That's why I keep talking about bringing truth, transparency, and accountability back into the government. You know, for your audience here, in my brothers and sisters in the Asian American community, as a pastor, I've been telling people my whole life that the only person I want to please at the end of the day is the person I'm going to meet at the end of my life. And so when I say something, I say it with all intention and truthfulness that this is what I'm going to do. Because the Bible tells me that I'm going to give an account for every word I say, every action I do, or every thought I have. And so I'm not going to say one thing and be thinking the other. I'm going to be telling people exactly where I am. And one of the interesting things is Michigan is only one of two states. There are only two states that do not have open record laws, Michigan and Massachusetts. So what that means is Governor Whitmer can do whatever she wants in her office, and we as citizens don't know what happened. We don't know what happened in the nursing homes, losing our family members, our elderly. We don't know what happened with Robert Gordon. You probably remember that when he walked away from her medical cabinet, and he wasn't even a doctor. He was an attorney. How do you put somebody over medicine who doesn't know anything about medicine? And that's why Dr. Randy Baker, as I mentioned earlier, who sued Governor Whitmer, has agreed to come in to my cabinet to run that, because he's got a lot of medical reform ideas. You know, even this whole big picture of the budget, I have this plan for prescription drugs for the military, for people who are on Medicare, Medicaid. We'll start with that. And it's going to cut so much money, so much waste, because pharmaceuticals they're cleaning our clocks financially. And they're doing that at the state level and state budgets. And I have a plan to really fix that. And I'm going to roll that out. But I guess all that I'm saying is we need to bring truth and accountability back to our state. And I've told people that when I'm elected governor, Michigan will have the opportunity to FOIA my office. In other words, Freedom of Information Act, to find out what was behind, let's say, for example, in Whitmer's office, what was behind Robert Gordon getting paid his $165,000 to walk away from his job? What were the actual numbers in the nursing home deaths? Because I don't have any reason to hide anything from the citizens of Michigan. If I have to give an account to the Lord, I certainly must give an account to the people of Michigan as well. So that's how I'm thinking as I enter this race, and that's how I'm thinking as I will become governor.
Great, thank you. Ralph, we'll probably have time for one or two questions. The next one is a follow-up question from David Jiang. David, you can go ahead, unmute yourself. Hey, David. All right.
There we go. Yeah, I just got it. I was tracking the which county has the most population or Asian population. But that's not the question I'm asked. I try to ask a question, as I said earlier, that I noticed and Asian population is very, not many of Asian facing Republican Party in the state. What would you do to attract more Asian into your team? Not just say, if you were elected as a governor, before that, let's say first step first, bring more Asian into your team and attract more Asians to vote for you. So that's the first step. What step you would do to attract more Asians into your team so you can get more Asian votes for yourself?
Okay.
That's my question.
All right. Well, you know, as I look at, again, everybody, this is my heart. You know, I look at the scriptures, the Bible, and it says that there will be people from every tribe, nation, kindred, and tongue, people represented in heaven. And because of that, I have a love for everybody. I mean, that's what God did. It says, for he so loved the world that he sent his only son. And it doesn't matter what our background is. It doesn't matter what the color of our skin is. It doesn't matter anything about us being male or female. It's about God's love for the world. And so I literally have, over the years of ministry, if you were to go to our church, if you were to show up on any given Sunday, you would see Asian folks, you would see Arabic folks, you would see Black folks, you would see 100% Italian people. I mean, as I stood up there every Sunday morning and I looked out, I saw a sea of people. Granted, our church was not a mega church, but it still was a microcosm of what heaven will be like. And because of that, I would be welcoming. And I think as people get to know me, they will know that that's my heart, that I love people, and it doesn't matter to me, you know, what their background is. And so how would I attract Asians? I think simply by having roundtables. Again, I come back to that. Asian roundtables where people could address issues that affect the Asian community here in Michigan more than anything else. Because as I said, you remember that phrase I keep using, that the people who the decision affects the most should have the biggest say. And so I would have an Asian roundtable that you sit in my office. People are gonna get tired of hearing this roundtable thing, but I really believe that it's going to bring us all together. And it will give everybody an opportunity to be heard. And that's what I want to be as a governor who listens to people, who's not, I can tell you this, I will not be bought off by special interest groups. That's not going to happen because as I've been telling people on the campaign trail, if you want a governor who you can trust that won't get bought off, a pastor like myself, I've never lived my life for money. I didn't enter the ministry to become rich. That hasn't happened. I've never made a decision based on money. I've made every decision based on what was right, the right thing to do. And so I know that's a long answer to your question, but basically to summarize once again, I have God's heart for people, and having a round table of Asians and a round table of inner city people, a round table, you know, there are going to be so many round tables meeting. And the reason why is because I want the citizens of Michigan to be heard in my office. May I add one other thing? On that note of hearing from the citizens, I've also told people on the campaign trail, and this has been up since I retired from our church back at the end of June, I'm going to have what's called an Operation Waiting Room. All of us know what it's like when there's an emergency and you go in a waiting room. It's like, oh, I got to wait 2 hours to be seen. My foot's busted or whatever. There's an advantage to having a waiting room. And the waiting room that I'm going to have is when the legislature sends a bill for me to sign, I'm not going to sign it at 12:15 in the morning when everybody's asleep. And then everybody wakes up the next morning and said, really, what was that? How did they pass that last night? When I get a bill from the legislature, there's going to be 2 weeks that will have to pass that I want to hear from the citizens of Michigan, both through the roundtables, and then there will be a mechanism on the website where the bill's posted and people have the opportunity to comment. And my staff will summarize those for me to give me the opportunity to know what the people of Michigan think about that. I could give you an illustration in the insurance industry from last year, but I'll save it. I think there might be one more question.
Okay. Very good. Thank you, Ralph. We're right on the hour. So 2 minutes past 9. Unless we have any other, compelling, the urgent questions, this is probably gonna wrap up this time around of the Meet the Candidate. I'd like to say thank you, Ralph, and give us the opportunity to know you, to know your campaign, and to know what you stand for. Thank you very much and appreciate your time. Gary, do you have anything to say or anything you wanna comment on?
No, you did very well.
May I add one other
Good
thing?
job, Mike.
Yeah, go ahead, Ralph.
I just wanted to add that if you go to my website, ralphrebandforgovernor.com, and I know it was up on the screen earlier, you will see that our campaign's vision is to make Michigan a lighthouse to the nation. And I am convinced that if we bring God back into culture, not only will the culture of Michigan change, not only will our students and our young people want to stay in a great state, but we're going to attract people from other states, as well as people will all over the country say, what are they doing up there in Michigan that's so different? Why are their murders going down? Why are the suicide rates going down? And as a pastor, I've seen God change people's lives. And I know that if he does it in the setting of a church, he can do it in the setting of a state. And so that's why our vision, it's not just about, it is America first, it is Michigan first, but we really want to see Michigan have an influence in the rest of the country. And I think our time is now.
Thank you. Very well said, Ralph.
Yeah. God bless you.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
All right,
Thank you,
thanks.
everyone, for your participating. And we'll see you next time. Good night.
Good night.
Good night. Stay safe. Tomorrow going to be a storm coming. So, all right.